The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everybody, to the Insight Group's webinar on achieving a seamless and personalized customer experience. Over the next 40 minutes, we will be discussing how to provide personalized and engaging experience to your customers, as well as ensuring a seamless transition across devices, channels, and internal departments. My name is Nick Johnson. I'm the founder of the Insight Group, and I will be hosting the webinar today. The webinar and the topics that we're covering actually form a pretty fundamental part of the agenda for this year's Insight Summit East, which takes place in New York on November the 12th and 13th and focuses on marketing and customer experience. Anne-Marie and Tricia will both be there speaking alongside 30 senior marketing and customer experience executives and chief marketing officers from some of the world's biggest brands. Before we get started with today's discussion, I just want to remind you that we are recording this webinar, so everybody will be receiving the audio recordings next week. The webinar is also very much interactive, so we will have a couple of anonymous polls taking place throughout the discussion, where we would encourage you to get involved and share your thoughts. And I also urge you to type in your own questions in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, so we can ensure that what we're covering is tailored to your challenges. You can do this at any point, and I'll be sure to incorporate those questions into our discussion throughout. We're also using the hashtag Insight Summit, which you should be able to see at the top right-hand side of your screen right now. So again, any questions or additional thoughts, we are monitoring Twitter, so please do tweet away. So to get started, I would like to introduce our panel of speakers. First, we have Tricia Gaverty. Tricia is the Senior Vice President and Regional Head of Marketing for the Commercial Bank of HSBC. Anne-Marie Gothard, Senior Director of Communication Strategy at Emblem Health. And then Rob Novak, Director of Marketing Strategy for Prudential Retirement. Now, before we get started with the discussion and that first poll, I want to let each of our speakers introduce themselves, and I'm going to move to Tricia first. So Tricia, would you be able to just let us know a little bit about your role at HSBC and what it is that you're doing there?
Certainly. Thanks, Nick, and thank you for the opportunity to be joining this webinar today. So I oversee all of the commercial bank marketing efforts within the United States. I lead a team of just about 20 people, and we cover the segments of business banking, middle market, and large corporate, with responsibility for directing the strategy and implementation of initiatives to help drive revenue throughout the bank.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Tricia. That's really interesting and sounds like you've got some fascinating experiences to share with us. Anne-Marie, I'd like to come to you next. So if you could let us know about your role at Emblem Health.
Great, thank you. Here at Emblem Health, I oversee a team probably about 22 people representing various stakeholder audiences ranging from members, providers, and our group sales. We support all lines of business, and we also support our health and wellness initiatives. And primarily, we're really driving to help the member experience, help them to understand how they can take an active role in both managing their own health and getting the most, from their health care benefits, as well as helping them to understand how, the programs that we have that can help in terms of whether they're dealing with a disease and managing or getting access to quality improvement initiatives that we offer, just to allow them in order to, stay healthy, get well, or to live better in terms of managing their current state through the continuum of their care. So we access, as I said, all lines of business through primarily the New York market.
Fascinating. Okay, thank you very much, Anne-Marie. And Rob, last but not least, if you could let us know about what it is that you're doing at Prudential Retirement in your role.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. And so I'm responsible for marketing to support our pension risk transfer business here at Prudential Retirement. So we work with sponsors or employers, corporations who sponsor defined benefit pension plans and the assets and liabilities associated with maintaining those plans. recently, there's been a wave of moving those liabilities from sponsors of the plans to the insurance community, both here in the United States and abroad. And so we work in a consultative manner with plan sponsors. And then once these transactions occur, we are responsible for maintaining the benefit payments to their retired populations. So, you know, communication efforts are really essential to the folks that we assume those benefit payments for.
Okay, fascinating. Thank you, Rob. So it seems that we have a fantastic panel here with us today, all with varying experiences on how to engage customers and why one should. Before we get started with extracting expertise from those people, we'd like to open up a poll. Our first poll of 2 today, and for everybody, just so you know, you can only select one answer. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to do so, and the question, somewhat unsurprisingly, is around the big theme of today's discussion. So we'll move over to the poll now. The question is, to what extent do you feel that your company has managed to align its online and offline customer experience and make it seamless? So it's an ambitious goal, seamless, and what we want to see is how far you have gone towards making that happen in your company, so we can judge the level of the audience and make sure that we're tailoring our discussion to you. So your choices are almost completely, to some extent, or not at all. Okay, fantastic. If everybody could vote now, that would be great. We'll count down. So you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second left, so please finish off your answers, and now we will begin to reveal the results. Here we go. So somewhat unsurprisingly, I suppose, most people are somewhere in the middle right now. It seems that people have recognized the need to do this and are somewhere down the road, apart from maybe a quarter of our group who haven't begun yet. Nobody is completely there, and I think that is probably an opinion that is shared by the majority of people in this space. So I'd like to go to our panelists and see if we can get their take on what these figures mean, whether they seem surprising to them. So Tricia, I'd like to come to you first. Can you give us your thoughts on these results, 74% to some extent and 26% not at all?
Sure. I think that that number doesn't surprise me. I think that while we've all been, jumping in the pool of the online and offline marriage, it's been difficult. I think that there's technologies, legacy technologies in place that often make it a little bit more challenging for all of us, right, to get back into online in a more sophisticated manner. And I think it's also just kind of keeping up with the demands and the behaviors of the consumer. So you have that mix of online, offline, and with the technologies changing as quickly as they are, it's oftentimes difficult to just keep pace. But I do think that all companies understand that we need to be in the world and marrying both the online and offline experience. I just don't know that the expertise has been completely honed across every industry. And again, I think it's just the customer research bit and that data piece of what resonates best and what your customer wants that makes it a little bit difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of get it right all the way.
All right, Tricia, and Rob, I want to come to you next, and just building on Tricia's response there, do you think even it's ever going to be possible for a company to confidently say that they have completely aligned their online and offline customer experience given the pace of change in the technology and in the customer expectation space?
Yeah, Nick, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that it's good to see that we don't have any liars in the audience, because I do think that to a certain extent, because of the reasons you just mentioned, with technology, with platforms becoming integrated, more and more each and every year, I don't think that we'll ever be able to completely 100% establish that perfect level of alignment. So yeah.
Okay. Anne-Marie, are you more positive? Do you think that perfection can be attained? What's your view on these results?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I sort of agree that I think we're always going to be chasing that perfection, and I think if we look at as well as sort of the cross-pollination of industries and, with innovation, the opportunities for different industries to find new ways to meet the demands of what consumers want. We're always going to be chasing for what's next, because I think consumers are going to be pushing us even more because, they want more. Especially as new generations are growing up, with technology, the demand for businesses to meet what they want is going to be growing more and more. I do feel, I guess, on the optimistic side, being able to, in the business, to be able to just be able to provide the basics. We all talk about, if you have a website, being able to just be able to do the basics, if it's registration or, changing your password and paying a bill online, those sorts of things. I do believe that we should get to a place where you can do that effortlessly, and it shouldn't be, you shouldn't have problems with those sorts of just general transactional type things. I think that technology has gotten to a place where we can meet and in some instances even exceed consumer expectations. But I think we're always going to get to a place in terms of the customer experience. It's always going to be changing as we continue to evolve and find new opportunities to do things better.
Okay, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you all of you, and thank you to everybody that voted in that first poll. I want to move a little bit more into detail into the expertise of our three panelists and what it is that they have learnt over the course of the last few years on this topic, and start with our first question to them. And that question, which I'll bring to you, Tricia, first, is what are the different online and offline touch points that you are using to interact with consumers right now at HSBC?
Sure. So because we canvass so many different audience types, right? So it's business banking all the way up to large corporate, and I just want to mention that there are companies that are domiciled here in the U.S. but looking to or have been doing business internationally. So we service them across all of the communication channels available. So there's the branch network, there's ATMs, there's the web, phone through the call centers, direct mail, email, and then on the commercial side especially, there's a sales team, a physical sales team, which has much more interaction and less branch interaction. And then there's traditional direct mail, as I said.
I see. Okay, fine. So a varied and extensive group. Anne-Marie, how does that match up to your own experiences?
Yeah, no, we're doing pretty much similar, the same. I think probably two different things in terms of the experience that I'll add. One is we're doing some things with we have a member portal that we work a lot with in terms of our market insights team has set up, really to allow us to get in and find out the habits of our members, to get a sense of what's working for them, what would they like to see, how are they using our benefits. It gives us an opportunity to look at our benefit and our plan designs to make sure that we're delivering products and services that truly meet them where they are in the evolution of their healthcare needs. So on online, that's been something that we've been rolling out over the last few years that has been beneficial. Kind of, in addition to using some of our, web satisfaction surveys and things of that nature. Offline, we have moved more into a retail space in terms of we've opened up what's referred to as, or they're called Emblem Health Neighborhood Care, which is out in the marketplace. And again, taking, health insurance that, traditionally has been sold, through, more B2B, moving into that B2C space, which has allowed us to be front and center and really interact with consumers, and helping to interact in a way where we're bringing them into our space and we're entering into their space to hear what's important to them. That has allowed us to really help not only just solve their issues and help resolve their benefit issues, but really to humanize what health insurance is all about.
I see. Okay, so there's an online and an offline presence there,
yes, online, off, yeah, definitely bringing in both the online and offline experience and finding ways to integrate that so it is more seamless.
Okay, fantastic. I look forward to learning more about that. Now, Rob, to borrow Anne-Marie's phrase, where at Prudential, how are you meeting your customers where they are, as it were?
Yeah, so I would say that, we certainly leverage the obvious channels, websites, direct mail, lots of phone calls, lots of phone interactions, other types of, printed collateral, offline printed collateral. But we also pay pretty close attention to how we're interacting in the not so obvious channels as well. I know Tricia mentioned sales. So, the conference circuit is a very important channel for us. So, how can we make sure that our latest collateral is there and present? Thought leadership we view as a primary channel. And then also our paid and earned media channels through advertising and public relations and media relations. Those are also pretty high priority for us.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I think what we can all take from that is that there is some consistency. There are some channels that everybody is using, and then there are a few different choices that each of you have made that maybe separate things out. The challenge, I suppose, and the topic of discussion today is how one aligns those multiple channels and deliver something that is consistent or even seamless to the customer. And Anne-Marie, I'd like to come to you first, and particularly picking up what you've just mentioned about opening offline, real-world presences at Emblem Health. And so what are the first steps that you've taken in aligning that customer experience over your multiple touch points, online and off?
Sure. Yeah. Before we could even open up neighborhood care, we probably had to, step back a little further. And one of sort of the premise, that we looked at, was sort of a saying, to reach the head, you have to touch the heart. And in order to do that, we look at our organization. We're, we're a 75-year-old institution, and how do you move an organization that, when with healthcare reform, we really had to change our business model. And as a result of that, we really needed to help and educate our employees to recognize that we needed to understand the New York market, not necessarily just the change to our business and the business model, but also that now we were going to be interacting with consumers in an entirely different way. So we had to step back, and the first thing we needed to do was understand the New York market and understand, what does it mean to go direct to the consumer. And while we did have, and we do have, a strong Medicare market, which is, an individual market, we needed to really step back and look at who's in the market. So we started with a very aggressive segmentation work so that all of our employees, no matter where they sit in the organization, frontline, back office, they could understand that, in our market, there are, sort of 5 different segments, and they know who they were and their coverage and the care and how to reach them and what are the things that we need to do, that these are real people, and as a result of that, these are some of the things that we're going to do, and we're going to give them a persona, and these are the people that are going to walk through the doors once we open neighborhood care. And so with that was a grounding that we established. So we have right now 3 locations and 2 more in development. So we have one in Harlem. If you're familiar with New York, we have one in Harlem, one in Queens, and one in Chinatown. And what that's allowed us to do is not only just provide a location for our members and non-members alike to walk in regardless, whatever their question might be, but really to provide an outpost in a central area in the heart of the community for people to come in and ask routine questions if they, receive information or literature, or if they just left their physician's office, or if they're looking for a doctor. The other thing that it's allowed us to do is develop very strong relationships with, the community leaders and other social service organizations in the neighborhood. So we've become kind of the, the middle of a wheel and providing grassroots services as well, so that, healthcare, is local, and we've become that source. We've become the kind of the go-to place when people are looking for decisions about healthcare, about doctors, or even questions about, their pharmacy benefits. And as a result of that, it also, not only are we getting people access to care, it allows our people and even our leadership to hear firsthand what are the concerns from our members and even, non-members alike. What are the concerns about our products and our services? What's top of mind for people? How are they using technology? How are they using, our tools? How are they using our services and our products, so that we can go back and look and figure out how can we, modify. It's, every day we're getting real-time data that we can, feed back into our product development team, or we can feed back into our service organization. It's allowing us to make, in some cases, real enhancements to our tools and our services, so that we're then able to enhance and create that experience. And, one example I'll give you, is we look at, anytime a member enrolls with us, they get a new member welcome kit. And as a result of that, by testing some of our materials at Neighborhood Care, it's allowed us to streamline that materials and make sure that we're putting in the hands of a new member, the immediate things that they need to know, the 5 things that you need to do as a new member. These are the essential things. Log on, you get your ID card, log on and register. Here's where you can find your doctor. How do you select your PCP? Here's the customer service number, things that you sort of take for granted, but as a new member, and especially someone who's never had insurance before, a lot of the new people who are getting access as a result of, Obamacare, they're finding, or they're in a way, some of them are finding their way just now, but as well as using that information, it's allowing us to put information front and center to help them navigate the healthcare system. So by using Neighborhood Care as a way to invite people into the healthcare system, it's also allowing us to improve satisfaction scores about, across the board in terms of what we're able to deliver as a company to the people who are using our products and services.
I see. I've just had a question come in from a member of our audience, just to follow up on what you've been saying. So there's obviously a considerable amount of integration work that has gone into what it is that you've built up at Emblem Health. What do you find have been the main challenges in doing that integration, besides the cost and the financial implications and forecasting?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things with Neighborhood Care, I would say a different model as well, is that we, a totally different staffing model, right? So we've hired from the community. So everyone that's, all the staff either grew up, live from the community. We've also took a different approach where we've taken a hospitality approach to the training. So from an integration standpoint, we work with various areas across the organization with medical management, service, operations, facilities. All the touch points within our business model are found within Neighborhood Care. So it's kind of sort of like a microcosm of what you would have across the organization. They're fully connected, integrated with the larger organization, so any sort of functionality that you would think that you would do, per se, at the corporate or in a call center, they're able to do in Neighborhood Care if you're a member. There are certain things that they can assist, a non-member, just a resident of the community that might walk in, but the integration has been crucial in terms of, cross-collaboration with other departments, just in order to help facilitate as well as the design and development, looking at sales and how to structure that and making sure that you have privacy rooms, working with clinical. We don't deliver, there's no clinical care that's there. We do have a pharmacist on staff who can help answer questions about pharmacy benefits and things like that, but we don't administer or deliver any care.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you, and thanks for that response, Anne-Marie. I want to move to you, Rob. One of the things that the 3 things that I picked up from Anne-Marie's response were the importance of educating one's employees on this, of understanding the market that you're going into, and make sure that you're present where your customers find most convenient, and then to listen to those customers as actively as possible. Are they themes that you found have been important in beginning to align your own customer experience across multiple touch points, or is there something different?
Yeah, I would say I would echo Anne Marie's comments around, particularly around internal communications. I think that is often overlooked or deprioritized because the job just has to get done. But we really strongly believe that investing in associate communication it just leads to more engaged associates who are obviously often the first line of communication with customers. And that's something that we have invested in heavily here within Prudential Retirement. I also think that just socialization of marketing strategies and activities across the enterprise is never a bad idea. And then on the flip side of that, as communications professionals, we're able to help facilitate socialization of efforts from other groups who might be interacting with customers on a fairly regular basis, be it the sales and distribution teams, the call centers, groups that are focused on primary research and things like that. So as communications professionals, there are things that our teams can do to make sure that we're helping other groups within our business lines communicate out to others.
I see. Okay, so that internal communication is critical. Tricia, over to you finally. Could you let us know what the approach has been at HSBC and the progress that you've made, the steps you've taken?
Sure. It's it's interesting to listen to Anne Marie and Rob. I think we're all kind of in the same world, but also facing the same challenges. I think what's very critical to remember here in delivering that seamless online-offline customer experience is that it all ladders back up to the brand, right? So whatever your brand promise and brand vision is, it has to cascade down through all of those touch points. And I think as we venture into the online, offline, and to Anne Marie's point of opening up now kind of brick and mortar outlets, keeping that consistency of message and tone and delivery of that experience is challenging. And I think the challenge comes, kind of circling back to both of their points, on the internal side, right? I think so you have the brand ambassadorship. I think you have sales teams that there's always a divide between sales and marketing. So it's critical to rely on the voice of the customer and to get that kind of frontline feedback on what they're hearing from customers, what works, what doesn't work, in order to inform it all, and also to lend more credibility, frankly, to the marketing cause, so that they're not kind of looking at, well, why are we doing that? Why would that piece of collateral be there? My people don't read that, or they're going to go online. Well, we need to be able to point back to some of the data that we've collected that's driven primarily by the behavior of our customers in order to bring it all together. So I think a couple of things to touch on is, again, laddering it up to the brand and getting everybody to agree and kind of sign up for this is our mantra, this is our mission, this is how we want people to perceive us in the marketplace, and that it should be perceived consistently from online, offline, across the board. And then again, to Rob's point, it's cutting down those silos and definitely leveraging the internal communications and getting that online, because then people feel that they have a part in it, right? And they can bring that same sense of pride and that same sense of purpose, to their own jobs, whether it be internal, external, and touching the consumer.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Tricia. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Anne Marie. One thing I just wanted to add, just mentioning, sort of building on what just Tricia and Rob just mentioned about the internal piece when she's talking about the brand. Something that, if people issue a brand tracker survey, one of the things that we did, I'm also responsible for our employee brand engagement, and one of the things that we did when I first started, because I was curious and we didn't have the data, we applied our brand tracker internally to see how our employees rated what we were measuring externally, just to see where there were gaps, because technically our employees are delivering on what we're saying externally, and it was quite fascinating. So if people, if you do administer a brand tracker survey, it might be something, budgets allow, you might want to think about applying it internally to see how your own employees feel about the attributes that you're measuring externally, because it really gave us some good insight, and we were able then to identify where are some gaps that we can look at in terms of what are some either programs or initiatives or things that we need to build up so that we can align our customer experience.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that, Anne-Marie. That's really interesting. I'd like to move on, given where we are time-wise, to our second poll and the second half of this discussion. So our second poll, again, the rules are the same as last time. Everybody has about 15 seconds to answer the question. The question is your company's customer experience designed for B2B or B2C customers? And your options: we focus on B2B customers, we focus on B2C customers, or we focus on both. We want to make sure that we're tailoring what it is that we're saying to you, and it would be interesting to know how many B2Bs and how many B2Cs we have out there. So again, I'm going to do a countdown for you from 5 seconds, so please do get in your answers. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we will close the poll now and we will look to get our results. So here we go. So 40% of you work primarily on the B2B side, 50% work across both B2B and B2C customers, and there's 10% of you that focus specifically on B2C. That's really useful and hopefully will help us in terms of what we're going to discuss moving forward. And the first question is what we feel are the differences between the ways that companies should approach customer experience depending on whether they're a B2B marketer or a B2C marketer. And also, what are the similarities? What are the sort of universal truths, as it were? And Anne-Marie, I'd like to come to you first to get your point of view.
Yeah, an interesting question. I think, step back for a minute. I think, some of it I think is the same. If I think about sort of like the value and, quality, I think the affordability and the quality of a product and service, it doesn't matter if it's an individual, if you're selling, or to a group or to a business, you still want to have, the best quality, the best value, the product or service that you can put out into the marketplace. I think it's, in terms of looking at the experience, that's where you sort of differentiate in terms of the experience, if it is to an individual, what is it they're looking for and how are you meeting that and how are you delivering on that. I think that's where you see some of the differences. And then as a marketer, how do you develop or how do you highlight those attributes? But I think, the baseline or bottom, the value of it and the quality of it should be the same. So my response, to that question.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we should focus on the same core practices, I suppose. Tricia, do you agree, or do you have a different point of view?
Yeah, I do. I think across both B2B and B2C, the common denominator is relevance. You have to be relevant, right? And I think for me, when I look at it, the difference between B2B and B2C, while everybody is time constrained, I think that in the B2B world, your buyer has a definite need, a definite idea of what they're looking for, right, and what they're trying to solve for. Where I think on the consumer side, there may be a little bit more opportunity to sell a bit more, if I'm candid, because look, we all knew we needed a mobile phone, and I didn't realize that I needed an Apple phone or an Android. I just needed a phone. So I think it's that opportunity to just look, I just want to solve for my problem. And sometimes in the B2B space, they have the opportunity to weigh, okay, I can take the gold standard, or I can take kind of the middle of the road that'll meet my budget. But I know pretty specifically what it is I'm looking for. Whereas in the consumer space, especially as I think about some of the things that Anne-Marie has brought up, as a consumer and looking in the healthcare arena, I may have more options, and I may need to kind of open my lens a little bit more to kind of anticipate and plan on a broader scale. So.
I see. And Rob, what's your view? What do you think are the differences and the similarities?
Yeah, so for the business that I support, the pension risk transfer business here at Prudential, obviously the differences between the B2B audience tends to be, the C-suite, very senior decision makers, senior financial decision makers in the corporate world, versus retirees, so former employees of these companies who are usually in pay status with their pensions. Big differences there. But one thing, as we're embarking on a new campaign or project that we always try to think about, which gets our teams thinking a little bit differently, is, how do those, what are the intersections of those worlds, and are there things that we could take from the B2B space and apply them to the B2C space? Everyone, can resonate with being treated like the smartest person in the world in the room. When it comes to the C-suite, that's often the case, and so we try to apply some of those principles on the B2C side. And conversely, are there things that we can do to our B2B materials to make them a little bit more engaging, to make them a little bit easier to understand and comprehend? So we like to try to mix up those principles. But to Tricia's point, I think at the end of the day, do you really have your customers' best interests in mind? Because that will certainly resonate more. And if you are, especially on the B2B side, if you're just trying to sell a product and not approach it from a consultative, challenge-solving manner, folks will see through that very quickly.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So what seems to be coming up from everybody is the importance of relevance and of understanding one's customers and solving their challenges. And building from that, an awful lot has been said about the importance of generating one-to-one relationships, one-to-one experiences with customers based on this sort of single customer view, this more in-depth and granular understanding of customers, maybe even beyond personas. So I'd like to ask our panel about that and about how they've gone about, if they have attempted to go about building up this one-to-one relationship. And as a sort of an addendum to that, it would be interesting to find out how many companies are looking to as you're looking to scale up, how you look to achieve this personalization at that scale and do this for hundreds, thousands, and more customers. So Tricia, I'm going to come to you first, but just before I do that, just to extend to our audience, if you do have any further questions that you would like to get answered, then please do ask them, and we will make sure that we cover them for you. But now, Tricia, over to you. Are you looking to achieve these one-to-one relationships, and is that something that's possible at scale?
Sure, Nick. I think speaking for everyone here, I think we're all looking to do that, right? And it's something that's got to be achieved at the outset. So you've got one chance to make a first impression, and that's why this is such a relevant topic, because no matter which touch point or channel your customer comes through, you can make it or break it at that initial point. So what we have done is we've implemented a marketing automation tool that has allowed us to really study the behaviors, right, and see what our customers are looking for in their online experience. We take out external touchpoint information, if they've attended events of ours, if they've had sales calls with our sales reps, and we marry all of that data together to help understand better exactly where in the customer journey they are, so that we can deliver more relevant information to them, and that the sales reps can call at the appropriate time with messages that are on point to where that customer is, whether they're sort of in kind of learning mode, or they're kind of deeper into relationships already with their banks and working internationally, but they're looking for a specific solution. So it's something that we've started just within the last year, that seems to be working quite well for us. I think the challenge is, and you touched upon it in the second half of the question, is how do you bring that to scale? So I think that takes just very careful planning, because you don't want to lose that intimacy and that sense of relevance by then kind of, blowing out the doors and trying to be everything to everybody. So I think it's really just a matter of making sure that you have the buy-in from management and sales, understanding that, we have to take a certain cadence that goes along and is comfortable for the customer base. And it's not really just about growing the numbers, in terms of volume, but rather more intimately and successfully handling each of those relationships, those one-to-one relationships, because they're going to bear fruit, and they're going to continue to bear fruit the more that you get to know them, because it's a relationship-driven business, the one that I'm in. So you really need to make sure that you kind of kid glove it along the way. So I think, just, again, using the anecdotal input from salespeople, I have a sales panel that serves as an internal advisory panel for me, where I get a tremendous amount of feedback. And to the earlier point by Anne-Marie around the brand tracker study and applying that lens inside, it's interesting to hear feedback from the salespeople and marry that up to the voice of the customer to see, are they kind of in alignment with what they're hearing and what's being reported by the customer, or is one sort of camouflaging, some of the feedback. So I think it just helps to have as much of those inputs as you can, in order to then ultimately drive that relationship on a much more personalized level.
I see. Okay, thanks, Tricia. Anne-Marie, what is it that you're doing at Emblem Health to drive that one-to-one relationship, that personalization?
Yeah, no, I agree, and kind of echo a little what Tricia said, that trying to do something that's scalable, I think, is something that we're all striving for. But I think in our case, we've spent the last year looking at sort of framing it in the consumer experience life cycle. So as I mentioned earlier, we started at looking at sort of the segmentation, and over the last year, really looking at the life cycle of how consumers purchase health insurance, and narrowed it down to or identified the 6 stages in which they go through, and at each one of those stages then really sort of identify where can we create that relationship to make sure that we're delivering on the experience that they anticipate. I'd say right now, and partly too because we're so regulated in things that we can and can't do, the online experience, there are things that we just have to be very careful about in terms of the information we put out and how we use that information. But for example, if we look at like the online experience, when a member sets up an account, if we're able to set up preferences, how do you like to be communicated, helping people set up, again, receiving information, receiving the way they would like to receive it, the time they'd like to receive it, letting people take control of their account so that it's really interacting with them when they're ready to receive the information, again, recognizing, as I said, their preferences, things like that we're able to do that give them that feeling of personalization. Those are some of the things that we're trying to figure out and trying to set up so that we can create sort of that one-on-one and makes it feel like, we know who they are and they recognize that we know, all about them. The other thing, similar to what Tricia mentioned, is, we can't go out to our entire membership all at once, so we are looking across our lines of business, and we recognize, if we look at certain populations that are maybe more attuned to being online, if we look at if we look at our HICS population, it's all online through New York State of Health or even through our own online portals. They're more adept to receive information electronically, so that gives us more latitude to try and do some different things, either electronically as well as with print, or do a combination of things. So we're in an interesting stage where we're just testing a variety of communications and channels and the best way to reach, and not only just the channel of distribution, but also from messaging and gauging reaction and response rates and things like that. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to, continue to kind of push the envelope a little bit to see how our members react and what sort of information that really helps them have that experience, whether it's in education and using, using their healthcare so they know, have the best experience, but also for them to get the most benefit out of it and understand what the access with the insurance, what that means for them in helping them to, stay healthy.
Okay, cool, great. Thanks, Anne-Marie. And Rob, over to you finally. Let us know a little bit about how you're moving towards delivering a one-to-one relationship, if indeed you are.
Yeah, so I would echo what Tricia mentioned earlier. I think when it comes to scale, marketing automation tools are key, and making sure that you've got a sound strategic plan as to what it is that you're trying to communicate and how you can automate your tool to make sure that you're delivering that customized experience at scale. But one of the things that we're keenly focused on here at Prudential is just continuous improvement. And when it comes to continuous improvement, we've found that we've seen success in starting small. An example of that earlier this year, we hosted an event. We called it Bring Your Parents to Work Day. Not Bring Your Kids to Work Day, but we invited associates to bring their retired parents, grandparents, neighbors, aunts, uncles, whoever, into the office for a day and sit down at the table with us so that we could learn from them about their experiences, planning for retirement, or going through retirement, or living in retirement. We had a pretty segmented population there, so that we could learn from them, but also so that they could learn from each other. And those conversations have really led to some interesting follow-up activities for us as we're continuously improving the way that we communicate with our retirees. So, we sort of used a one-to-one or a one-to-a-few approach to garner some learnings that now we're scaling.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that, Rob. Unfortunately, given the time, it is now the end of our questions and today's webinar. So apologies if I was unable to get round to your question. There have been some fantastic comments and fantastic engagement. So thanks to everybody. A particular thanks, of course, to our speakers for today, to Tricia, to Anne-Marie, and to Rob. For their insights, their time and their contributions. Just before everybody leaves to get a well-deserved post-lunch coffee, depending on where you are, I suppose, we will be sending out the recordings of this webinar next week. So don't worry if you missed parts of this. You will get the full document sent over to you. And what's more, if you do still have questions and you would like to ask your panelists in person, then Anne-Marie and Tricia will be speaking alongside 45 other leading senior in-house marketing executives at the Insight Summit East in New York on the 12th and 13th of November. You can see some of those other brands that will be speaking on your screen now, and I have also just sent through a link to download the Summit brochure, which should be in the chat field of your computer screen now. So do check out the full speaker lineup and the agenda there. So all that remains is for me to thank you once again for joining us and give another big thank you to our speakers, and wish everybody a fantastic rest of the day. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.